to this kind of internal subversion. And I think while the United States remains strong and its people remain fond of their Constitution and aware of its provisions and understand how lucky they are to have woken up and been born into freedom and democracy, I think if they continue to stand and fight against this tide of Marxist nonsense, then in the end it is freedom that will prevail, and there's nothing the Marxists can really do about it. As I've said, they'll try to bring forward the Copenhagen Conference. They will continue to try to lie in the mainstream media, which they largely control. They will try to conceal the truth about what's really going on about ClimateGate. They won't even mention the police inquiries that are now chasing after these wretched scientists for what they've been doing, and not just under freedom of information, but under financial fraud. They won't mention that the chairman of the IPCC itself is now under a fraud inquiry in 2 countries. They won't mention any of this. But this is what's now happening. And gradually, as the net tightens around those who have tried for years to get away with fabricating science to support a political case, once just one of them actually faces indictment and prosecution and jail for committing scientific and financial fraud, it'll only take one, and all the rest will run for cover. And I think that is going to happen. I don't think that the police in East Anglia can ignore the multiple evidences of serious, systematic, scientific and financial fraud which those emails reveal. The desire to do down opponents who have a legitimately alternative scientific point of view, the desire to suppress their publications, and the desire to do this so that those who are doing this could continue to receive the very large, enhanced levels of grant they were getting from politicians whom they had scared into believing global warming was a real problem. I think those people are going to end up, some of them anyway, in jail. And once 1 or 2 of them have been put away for fraud, that's going to make the rest of the scientific community quite a lot more careful about how it behaves.
Amen. I agree to that. Now, I noticed that out of the agreement that they actually did get, that they had a $100 billion startup fund for this funding that they're talking about. And that happens to match exactly the amount that Hillary Clinton offered at the very beginning of the conference. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Is that going to be funding strictly from America to fund this initial startup for this green loans program?
Well, no, because the American administration cannot just hand over $100 million of your cash to some third party overseas without getting the approval of Congress. And I can tell you for free that Congress will not approve any such payment. So all of that was just talk by Hillary Clinton. And the sum of $100 million is, in fact, going to be $100 billion, I think it is going to be by 2020 that will be the annual amount that they expect to be paid into this fund. Not until then. At the outset, we're looking at only $30 billion spread over 3 years. So it's a much lesser sum. Of course, it's still a large sum, and it's still a sum which I don't think the American taxpayer will want to pay, and I don't think his elected representatives in Congress will want to pay it either, because there is a growing realization, and I've testified in Congress a couple of times this year in front of committees representing both of the major parties, and I think it's quite interesting. The Republicans have already seen that climate change is an excuse on the part of the bureaucratic class to make themselves rich, and that isn't really a problem either scientifically or economically. Economically, there's no point in doing anything about it. The Democrats, interestingly, have begun to get that point as well. More and more of them privately are saying to me, I was talking to 1 or 2 of them actually in the Copenhagen conference, they're saying to me, we realize that we got this wrong on the science and that it's just not going to go anywhere. Of course, they dare not say so because the official line, hysterically pursued by Nancy Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and of course by Obama himself, is that this is the biggest problem and we must face it. But privately, more and more of the more sensible Democrats are realizing that this is just nonsense and that the taxpayers are going to fling them out of office if they have anything more to do with cap and trade. So, although I think Obama will try to use the same technique to push cap and trade through the Senate as he used to push healthcare through by bribing individual senators with sweeteners for their particular constituencies, their particular states. I think he will try that, but I don't think he'll succeed. And I think if he does succeed, he'll probably be impeached, because he came, I think, pretty close to breaking the rules of Congress, breaking the rules of the Constitution in the way that he bought the votes of the last few senators on the healthcare bill. And I think if he tries that again, the Republicans will not let him get away with it twice. They will impeach him. So I think he's got to be careful. And I think what will happen, therefore, is that the Republicans will resist any more payment of money to third world countries via the UN, and certainly to the UN itself on this. They just won't want any more money going in that direction, not at a time when there's so much hardship at home, and ordinary people with their houses being foreclosed on them, and their jobs disappearing as the economy collapses, and of course jobs disappearing also as the electricity supply begins to run out, because the left have very craftily, by a series of interlocking legal actions, managed to prevent new coal-fired or nuclear power stations being built anywhere in America over the last 10 or 15 years, and that is beginning to affect America's capacity to keep the wheels of industry turning. Already the largest aluminium smelter in the United States has had to shut down because it was unable to buy electricity from anyone. Why? Because not enough power stations are being built. Why? Because the Marxists, realizing that they can't achieve internationally what they want to achieve, are trying to achieve it locally by individual court cases. However, in that respect, they are about to get a very nasty surprise, because the coal companies, who are the victims of this rather vicious and, on the whole, rather invisible campaign by the left, are obviously going to have to fight these cases, or they will not survive in business. And so what they're going to do is they're going to take on the various left-wing groups that are trying to do this to them, and they're going to face them down on the IPCC's science, which now, for the first time, is going to come under scrutiny in several different United States federal district courts. And what will be argued, and argued very compellingly by eminent scientists, will be that the UN has, indeed, as I've been saying all along, prodigiously exaggerated the effect of CO2 in causing warming, and of all other greenhouse gases, for that matter, in causing warming, and that therefore the problem that the UN says exists does not, in fact, exist. And I think that although the courts tend to be very impressed with the credentials of learned bodies like the IPCC or the National Academy of Sciences, at the same time they cannot resist looking at clear scientific evidence when it is presented to them by eminent scientists on the other side. We did this in the Al Gore case. And the first set of lawyers we went to said, we won't act for you because we don't think you have any chance of beating Al Gore. And I said, look, the guy has lied. Oh, yes, but he's the Vice President of the United States, and the court will look at that and they won't look at the facts. I said, no, they will look at the facts because we'll tell them to. And so I wrote the scientific testimony in the case against Al Gore's movie in the London High Court 2 years ago, and we won, because I got a couple of eminent scientists to put their names to the testimony, and the moment the other side saw that, they ran for cover. And they said, okay, we accept the film is full of errors, we'll put them right before we send the film around. And so we won the case, got our costs paid, everything, and the government lost. And we can do that now with the IPCC's science, because that's, in many ways, no less exaggerated than the pseudoscience of Al Gore. And I think what is bound to happen with these court cases against the utility companies, where the utility companies are going to have to fight, they will have to fight on the science, because they won't be able to win on procedural grounds. They've tried that and not got anywhere. The courts are saying, well, maybe there's a case that ought to be heard, and they're saying to the district courts, you've got to hear this case. So I think we're now going to have this matter of whether the science adds up or not tried in the one place where you can guarantee that both sides will be given a fair hearing, and that's a courtroom, because that's what courtrooms do. They hear both sides. The media don't, the politicians don't, and the scientists driving this scare certainly don't. They were doing their damnedest to make sure the other side never got heard. But in a court of law, whether anybody likes it or not, both sides get heard. And in every debate that I've taken part in, where there have been both sides fairly heard and no tampering with the evidence, then the truth has always emerged, and everybody has realized that the UN's case is based on sand. And I think once we've won a few cases and the UN's science simply becomes discredited by judges laughing at it because they have had the thing explained to them and have realized what nonsense it is, once that begins to happen, then it's all over bar the shouting. And it's only a matter of time then before this is just the latest and greatest in a long line of attempted scares that have been used by various people to try to extract money out of taxpayers, and this scare will go